También las mujeres españolas.
This in DRC, 1 kilo costs.
Spoke about balancing supply and demand and so on, and the irrigation part of it. And we spoke about that table. Where do you think you are and how can you get better and what can you improve on? And I said one of the things is technique and practice, which is about pruning and training in peppers. And do you remember that pyramid that was upside down, where I said that we've got the source, the factory creating the sugars, and we've got everything that's using the sugars. And then with that upside down pyramid, we agreed that not every competitor is equal. The fruits and the seeds in them and the shoots, the growing points are very strong competitors, and the roots are weak. That pyramid is the most critical in peppers. Of the 3 crops that we do in a greenhouse, maybe cucumbers or tomatoes or peppers, peppers have got the weakest root system, the fewest roots and the worst roots. They've also got the thickest, most dense leaf. They take the most energy to create leaves. So they are really, that pyramid is really exaggerated in peppers. So your ability to manage supply and demand is much more important in peppers. What happens in a cucumber goes wrong, you can see it, you can fix it, and next week you've got the outcome. What happens in day 10 in a pepper is with you until day 300. Right? Keep that in mind. I'm going to ask you a question later. So I'm telling people that one of the most impactful visits I had in peppers was maybe 21 years ago in the Netherlands. I went to a grower. I was able to visit a grower who had 10 hectares of high-tech glasshouse, all yellow peppers, all one variety, and all planted in the same 2-week period. Which is nice and easy because actually now everything's the same, right? Okay. And he's got a lot of good tools in his hands, and he was achieving more than 30 kilos a square meter 21 years ago. But he said, per square meter.
21 years old.
So he said something to me that has stayed with me ever since, and I've been repeating it today, and I repeated it last year, and I repeat it when I visit farmers. He said that his role as a grower is to pay attention to the first 25 centimeters of the plant and the roots. In between, he didn't care. In between is crop protection and harvesting. And that's just an operational job. His job as a grower was to pay attention to the top of the plant and the roots. Why? Because in a greenhouse, what have you invested in? You've invested in the flat surface, length by width. You've invested in the height, so why not use it? But you've also invested in time. You're investing to go to a high market, a high value market. The high value market doesn't want 10 crates this week and nothing for the rest of the month. They want 10 crates, 10 crates, 10 crates, 10 crates. Time. So he comes into the greenhouse and he looks in this plant and he sees, oh, okay, the flowers, the buds are there, they're nice quality. The leaves are what I expect in terms of size. Pollination will happen. No problem. I've got some peppers coming. In 7 weeks I will harvest peppers. But how does he predict the future? How does he predict what's going to happen on this string? How does he secure the element of time, the dimension of time? He looks at the roots. He's lucky because he's got rock wool and it's easy to see. He opens his slab, and if he sees a lot of new, white, fresh roots, he knows that the top part of the plant has not dominated the roots. They're in balance. They're cycling together, which means the plant will grow up the string, it will make flowers, and he will look at them and say, oh, in 7 weeks I get a fruit. But if he sees a lot of dry or brown, usually it makes three nice stems the first time round. So the first thing we do is, we call this the king flower, you remove it. Everybody nods their heads because that's logic and they've heard it before and they're understanding the reason. If you put this in tremendously strong zinc, and by the way, pepper fruits are a terribly strong zinc because packed with seeds, and a thick, heavy wall. There's a lot of energy in that, right? Not in a cucumber. A cucumber is 90% water, not energy. This is energy. If you put that fruit there too soon, it's going to strangle the root system. The root system's not able to cope with it. So, logic, everybody immediately accepts, I'll break it up. You get the one rebel that says, no, that's my money. Well, they're wasting their time because it's going to get trapped in there. 9 times out of 10, it's bad quality because it's stuck inside the stems. Take it off and invest in the future. Now you see what happens in a pepper. It's split there and made our stems, right? It terminated in a flower. It now grows for one leaf. There's the leaf. And it splits. It puts a flower in the split and it splits. And if you take that next stem, it grows for one leaf and it splits with a flower. And if you take the next stem, it grows for one leaf and it splits. And there's the flower. So what's happened? 2 became 4, became 8, became 16, became 32 in 4 or 5 steps. And now at the next step, if we can look into this wilted head, what do we see? Look at the mass of buds and flowers that have already come at the top. Maybe easier to look at one of the plants around you than this poor wilted thing. So what we've got here is a whole lot of future strong sinks which we're trying to avoid. And that's why we prune. Because of the split very quickly. In 5-6 weeks you're at crisis point. So what's our system? We've chosen our 3 stems, we've attached them to a string, right? Now here's 1, let's focus on 1. This is level, I like to call it level 0, the king. It's out. You all accept it, no arguments. Yes. Now we get to 1. There's a flower there, and it splits. That flower, in or out? Out. Out. It's still too soon. Don't worry about it. It's going to, in this system, right? I'm talking about this system. You can have a system that is very short cycle because you've got a market issue or you've got a climate issue. You're in West Africa and hot climate. You've got to flush as much as possible. I'm talking about this system. If your goal is this, then this applies. So we get to level 1. That flower, it's too soon. It's got to come out. We've got our 2 stalks. Quite naturally, because of our breeding, one is stronger than the other. You can see it. You're not going to choose the weak one. That's not logical. This one, we attach it to the string, to the rope. What will you do with this one? In the Netherlands, it's gone. And it's gone early because they don't want to waste the energy. In our condition, I think that's too hard. I think we need that leaf for shading and also to move water and create a cooling microclimate. But what we don't want is the growing point in the flower. Because you're the last ones of the day, I can remove it and do it properly. You want that at an early stage, right? I'm doing it very late, but that's what we want to see. Clear?
Clear.
0, king flower out, stems chosen, attached to a string. Level 1, flower out, stem chosen, attached to a string, side shoot, amputated. In isiZulu, you've got to be very careful how you speak. Because if you say to somebody, keep the leaf, in isiZulu, keepa means remove. So you need to be careful what you say. Now we get to 2. 0, 1, 2. The split. The weak one, the strong one. Tied to the string. Remove the leaf stays. What about that flower? Keep or keeper?
Keeper. Remove it.
Okay, it's an auction. You're going to say yes. You're going to say no. It's a decision. It's a decision you make based on the conditions of your plant, the circumstances. Are you in, maybe it's still very cold or your plants are struggling, or maybe it's improving conditions because you're in the springtime or whatever it might be. You make a decision, in or out. That's where it begins. Now your management, now you're a grower. In or out. Move to the next one. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Clear.
Yes.
What about stem 2? Okay, naught is common, so it's out. 1 is 1, it's out. The side shoot is the side shoot, it's out. We're at 2. The side shoot is the side shoot, it's out. What about the flower? Keep or keeper?
No.
It's a decision. Because again, what's the condition? Stem 3, what do we do? Bang, bang, bong, it's a decision.
Look at the 3 rules.
Yeah. You want to talk, come stand up. So Pitya said, yeah, okay, nice, what about the 3 rules? Because she's heard it before. So that's the basic pattern of what you're doing. So we spoke about balancing demand and supply by deciding on the placement and the timing and the number. So this is a bit about placement. Now what about number and timing? Rule number 1, no flowers on side shoots. Repeat after me, no flowers on side shoots. In the first place, there shouldn't be a side shoot because what did I tell you? But what happens is, that flower that was here fell off for whatever reason. So the side shoot that was growing here that had a flower on it, the grower says, oh my God, there's no money coming. Let me replace it here. But what's happening now, your quality flowers on the main stem, because you took it there to replace the one that you lost there, it's now competing in time with that one. It's like having twins.
Okay.
Instead of one baby and another baby. They're matching each other in time. So you're going to pay for this later. You're not going to see it here, you're going to see it here. Because now there's 2 instead of 1. So rule number 1, no flowers and side shoots. Rule number 2 is why you don't really mind about rule number 1. Why you can be free to exercise rule number 1. Rule number 2 is no more than 12 to 15 fruits at a time from what you're about to harvest to what's setting. Remember the tomatoes? I kept asking everybody how many clusters from setting to harvest. 6 to 8. It's the same. 12 to 15 fruits from harvesting at different stages. We don't want to see 12 at once. We want to see the stages. On a plant? No. On a stem? On a stem? No. On a plant. So if we say 12 and we've got 3 stems, we only need 4 fruits. We only need 4 fruits to follow rule number 1. Rule number 2. So if that flower falls off, don't panic. Use another one later. Or put it on the other stem. Because you only want 4 on a stem, 12 in total. So you can actually go zigzag. You can go stem 1 or stem A, position 3, stem B, position 4, stem C, position 6. Good luck explaining that to your staff. But you've got the capacity to decide where it's going to go. Okay? You've managed time and placement. So rule number 1, no flowers and side shoots. Rule number 2, 12 to 15 fruits on a plant, not a stem. And not all at once, but in the stages. What's rule number 3? Look me in the eyes. What's rule number 3?
Understood.
Look me in the eyes. Rule number 3 is follow the rules.
Thank you.
Because what happens is human nature, right? The market's coming, you see a lot of fruit, you want to take them, you break your own protocol.
Yeah.
Your staff also are fantastic. They see a lot of fruits, they think, great. The boss is going to be happy, right? The owner's going to be happy. But they break the rules. I don't control, so maybe that's okay, but yeah, look, the size, the quality, they're on side shoots, they're going to break. Alex from Ghana said, yeah, it's more difficult to trellis because you've got all these long side shoots that are dropping because of the weight. And that stem might look alright, but the next one's empty. So you haven't actually managed or achieved anything.
This one look better. When you look at the fruit.
So you got that?
This one.
I'm not sure I'm following you, but
Yes. When you look the size of the fruit, this is the same size.
What's happening is now it's hot in here. Confirmed, remember, it's warm. So everything's of one temperature. The bag is also hot. And remember from high school physics, water takes a lot of energy to gain temperature, to change temperature, and then it holds that temperature for a long time. So now you get to night time, the air gets cooler, the plant gets cooler, the leaves shut down because there's no sunlight, but the bag is still at 25 or 28 degrees. The roots are still warm and they've still got water. So they're going to drink and they're going to pump. And that water's got nowhere to go. It's got nowhere to go. It's going to get pumped everywhere and eventually burst the fruits. Or you've had the situation where you've had very dry and then suddenly, or very high UC, and then you give 0 UC or you give a lot of water. The fruit skin is already formed. There's nowhere for that water to go. It creates a pressure and it bursts. And you get this cracking. Or you do it consistently on a daily basis. The fruit swells, shrinks, swells, shrinks, swells, shrinks. And it creates those stretch mark breaks of microclimate. Which is why in that graphic we stopped irrigating earlier in the afternoon to allow the plant to suck the bag dry. But it doesn't sit in water. Sometimes root pressure is your friend for blossom end rot problems. Blossom end rot, you know, the deficiency of calcium in tomatoes, and we see it on the bottom of the pepper plants, because the calcium is missing. There's no cement between the cells. And it happens at a very young, early stage, and as Godfrey says, it's irreversible. You can't, if you've got bricks on a wall and the cement's falling out, you can't throw cement at the wall expecting to go between the bricks. It's not going to happen. So there was at fruit set stage just a temporary critical deficiency of calcium. Here, not here, but here. And that's because calcium can only move in one direction in the plant. People will tell you, oh, I've got blossom end rot. Spray, it'll fix it. Number one, the small fruit that's already starting to change cannot be fixed. It's irreversible. And number two, that calcium you spray here cannot move. If it gets into the leaf, it can't go backwards. It can only move in the water stream. As Godfrey says, it will make the plant look very nice, but it's got nothing to do with your problem. It's also going to pay the Mercedes of the guy that sold it to you. You have to pump the water and the calcium to the end of the fruit. The reason that calcium or blossom end rot happens at the blossom end is because there's nothing here that's sucking the water stream past. That's why if you cut through the fruit and you make sections, you'll find more calcium here and less here, because it has to be pumped there. And that's when root pressure is your friend. You use the root pressure at night to pump calcium throughout the plant, because during the day it's being hijacked in the water stream by the young plants. It's not reaching this part. So do you irrigate suddenly at 8 p.m? Well, in some cases maybe you do because of climate or whatever, but in principle no. You stop at the same time. You still want the plant to dry down, but replace your last irrigation with a calcium nitrate so that it sits in calcium. You had a word for it earlier.
Yep.
You called it loading.
Yeah.
You load the calcium into the plant.
Okay, so that means when we...
So if you don't feed it, it's not going to do whatever you want it to do. That is the basic principle. So in nutrition, we can start with the basics. Yeah. When it comes to, for example, setting this crop, you might get the right variety, you have the right practices, but if you miss out on the nutrition, you'll never get to the fruits that we currently have here. So what we do when it comes to nutrient management is we try to focus on stage-specific objectives. So for example,